much time as you want on your photography gig." Laney laughed. "You're going to regret saying that. You should definitely impose a time limit, or we might end up camping out in the woods tonight by the time I'm satisfied with the pictures." "Have a nice trip back," Raymond teased, "because after all of that exercise and fresh air, I'm going to be heading back here for a nice steak dinner and maybe a soak in the hot tub." Laney chuckled, then turned towards the front door of the B&B. "Yeah, I think a steak dinner sounds better than camping in the woods and subsisting on Pop-Tarts, so lead the way." There was one other family staying at the Evergreen this weekend, and they weren't up for breakfast yet, so Laney and Raymond passed the deserted small dining room, which reminded Laney an awful lot of her own place, Marcy's tea room, back in Iberden. Small tables painted in different colors dotted a room filled with bright rugs, and there were eclectic paintings on the walls, creating a warm coziness that Laney loved. She had inherited her late grandmother's tea room and revived it, freshening up the interior with new paint, sumptuous rugs, and her personal paintings. Now it was more lively than it had been in years. There were the Iberden regulars who came in around the same time every day and ordered nearly the same thing every time. And then there were the tourists. Iberden was a picturesque small town that had something to offer out-of-town guests year-round, so business stayed brisk. Laney had even been able to hire a part-time server, Carly, who also worked at the thrift store in town, where Laney had found many of her sets of silver and random teacups. Carly was such a dear that she'd practically shoved Laney out the door on Friday, with strict orders not to come back until she'd had some fun. Laney felt a little bit guilty about leaving the young lady in charge, but knew that she was capable, so she tried not to worry too much. Raymond held the passenger door of his car open and closed it after Laney was seated. She was beyond glad that he was doing the driving, so that she was free to gaze dreamily out of the window, taking in the stunning vistas around her. Raymond drove in silence, allowing her to focus on the experience, until he pulled into the parking lot of what appeared to be an old-fashioned general store. "Oh, wow, this is so cute," Laney exclaimed, loving the rustic wooden exterior that had a wagon wheel fence on either side of the double doors that led inside. "What are we doing here?" "Last stop before the trail. This is where we stock up on snacks and water," Raymond replied. "They have trail mix granola bars and the best beef jerky you'll ever taste." He turned the car off, and Laney followed him inside, breathing in deeply the fragrant mountain air. There were a few other people in the quaint little shop, walking around browsing the camping gear, but Raymond and Laney made a beeline for the snacks in the coolers where the water bottles were kept. "Mornin', folks!" A chipper older man greeted them when they reached the front counter with their bounty. "Can I help you with anything?" "Nope. I think we found everything we need," Raymond replied, setting down his items and making room for Laney's. "Well, it sure does look like you guys found everything all right," he chuckled, scanning the items. "I'm Ed, by the way, the owner. My store has been the main stop before and after hitting the trails for ages." Raymond handed him a credit card before Laney could protest and paid for all the items. Ed ran it and handed it back to him. "Going to Centennial Woods, I suppose?" "Actually," Raymond replied, "I found another trail that I wanted to hit today. It's a little less touristy and it runs alongside a couple of the Centennial Woods trails." "Ah, yes, I think you're referring to Baker's Point," Ed interrupted. "Definitely a hidden gem, but make sure you follow the trail markers. Unfortunately, that trail hasn't been managed for a while since it's so quiet." "Thanks for the tip." Raymond grinned and headed back to the car. Once they were back on the road, Laney loaded her snacks and water into her pack and was just zipping it up when they pulled into the little 3-car parking lot with the wooden sign out front, alerting them they had arrived at Baker's Point Preserve. "You didn't need to buy my snacks, you know." She raised an eyebrow at Raymond. "Of course, I didn't have to. I wanted to."